He was known as the man who made people laugh at children's parties. But behind that painted smile, he hid one of America's darkest secrets. Today we're diving deep into the chilling story of John Wayne Gacy, a man who became one of the most horrifying serial killers in U.S. history. This is the truly unsettling tale of the killer clown. Get ready, because this is going to be a tough one. Born on March 17, 1942, right there in Chicago, Illinois, John Wayne Gacy seemed to be living a pretty ordinary life, at least on the surface. He grew up in what you might call a typical working-class family, but his childhood, as we now know, was far from easy. It was actually filled with a lot of pain. His father, unfortunately, was verbally and physically abusive, constantly calling him weak and worthless. Can you imagine growing up with that kind of negativity? It left a deep scar. As Gacy got older, he learned to bury those insecurities, to hide them behind a meticulously crafted mask of charm. He became a master people pleaser, polite, incredibly hardworking, and outwardly ambitious. By his late 20s, he had built a surprisingly successful construction business and was deeply involved in local politics, even joining the JCs and being a ward committeeman. From the outside looking in, he was a pillar of the community. But Gacy, as we will uncover, had a profoundly dark side, one that he expertly concealed behind that ever-present painted smile and famously a clown costume. It was a secret life, a double life, that would ultimately shock the nation. Gacy became an absolute fixture in his community, known by everyone as Pogo the Clown. He would regularly dress up, complete with full makeup and costume, to entertain children at birthday parties, local parades, and countless charity events. To the unsuspecting eyes of neighbors, parents, and children alike, he was simply Pogo, a kind, jovial man who genuinely loved to make people happy, to bring joy and laughter to any occasion. He was the friendly guy next door, always ready with a joke or a balloon animal. But in private, behind the closed doors of his suburban home, he was something entirely, horrifyingly different. He was a predator. Behind those public performances, when no one was watching, Gacy meticulously lured young boys and teenagers. He'd promise them work opportunities, often for his construction business, offer them money, or simply suggest they come over for a good time. Once these unsuspecting victims were inside his home, the nightmare began. He'd often handcuff them, chillingly telling them it was all part of a magic trick he was about to perform. But the trick, tragically, always ended in unspeakable horror and death. Between 1972 and 1978, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Dozens of boys and young men started disappearing in the greater Chicago area. Families were reporting their sons missing, their hearts aching with worry. But the police, despite their efforts, had very few concrete leads. It seemed like these disappearances were just isolated incidents at first. A tragic commonality among many of the victims was that they often came from troubled backgrounds, or they were living on the streets, making them incredibly vulnerable and, sadly, easier targets for someone like Gacy. He was cunning, meticulous, and chose his victims carefully, often selecting those who wouldn't be immediately or vigorously missed by a wide network of people. All the while, Gacy continued living his horrifying double life without a hitch, a respected businessman by day, a brutal killer by night. His house, located at 82113 West Somerdale Avenue, looked perfectly normal from the outside, a typical suburban home, blending seamlessly into the neighborhood. But beneath it, beneath that seemingly ordinary facade, lay a nightmare that no one, absolutely no one, could possibly imagine. The horrific truth began to unravel in 1978. A 15-year-old boy named Robert Peast vanished into thin air after telling his mother he was going to talk to a man about a potential construction job. That man, as fate would tragically reveal, was John Wayne Gacy. When police began investigating Peast's disappearance, they quickly noticed glaring inconsistencies in Gacy's stories and alibis. His explanations just didn't add up. Their suspicions grew stronger, And soon enough, they managed to obtain a search warrant for his seemingly ordinary home. What they discovered once they entered would not only shock them, but would eventually send shivers down the spine of the entire world. Underneath Gacy's house, in an incredibly confined and horrifying space, investigators found a hidden crawl space. Inside, they made an unthinkable discovery: human remains, dozens of them. The stench of death, a truly overwhelming and sickening smell, filled the air, confirming their worst fears. Gacy had buried many of his victims right there, beneath the very foundation of his own house. Others he callously disposed of in the nearby Des Plaines River, hoping they would never be found. Gacy was finally arrested on December 21, 1978. Initially, as expected, he denied everything, playing the role of the innocent, respected community member. But soon, the overwhelming weight of his horrific crimes, the mounting evidence, and the sheer number of victims became far too heavy for him to hide or deny. In a truly chilling confession, Gacy ultimately admitted to the unthinkable. He had killed 33 young men and boys. He described in gruesome detail exactly how he would lure them in, often strangle them with a rope, and then with unimaginable callousness bury their bodies in his crawl space or dispose of them elsewhere. What's even more disturbing are the words he reportedly uttered to the police during this time. "I am not guilty, just insane. Clowns can get away with murder." His words and his actions painted a terrifying picture of a man utterly devoid of empathy, a true monster masquerading as a benevolent entertainer. The trial of John Wayne Gacy finally began in February 1980, and it quickly became one of the most publicized and talked about court cases in American history. The evidence presented against him was absolutely overwhelming and undeniable. Disturbing photographs, the physical remains of his numerous victims, and Gacy's own chilling words from his confession. Throughout the proceedings, Gacy displayed an unnerving lack of remorse, often seen joking and even smirking in court, as if the whole thing were some macabre performance. Psychologists and legal experts endlessly debated whether he was truly insane, as he claimed, or if he was simply a cold, calculating psychopath. But the jury, after hearing all the gruesome details and witnessing his behavior, ultimately saw him for what he truly was: a deliberate, premeditated, and utterly heartless murderer. After an intense and emotionally draining 6-week trial, the verdict came swiftly and unequivocally: guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to death for his heinous crimes, a punishment many felt was the only fitting end for such a monster. While on death row, Gacy actually took up painting, developing a strangely morbid artistic hobby. He produced numerous portraits, and many, perhaps unsurprisingly, were of clowns. What's truly unsettling is that some collectors, in a bizarre twist of human fascination, paid thousands of dollars for these pieces, morbidly referring to them as killer art. When he was occasionally questioned about his victims during interviews, Gacy would respond with chilling nonchalance, coldly stating, "They're just not my type anymore," as if he were discussing a preference for coffee, not the lives he had brutally stolen. For years, he tirelessly appealed his case, trying every legal avenue to overturn his conviction or sentence, but every single attempt failed. Finally, on May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection at the Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. His final words, uttered just before his death, were reportedly chillingly casual and defiant. "Kiss my ass." A final vulgar act of defiance from a man who embodied pure evil. Even decades after his execution, John Wayne Gacy's crimes continue to haunt America, leaving an indelible mark on the national psyche. He wasn't just a killer. He became a chilling symbol of evil hiding in plain sight, a stark reminder that danger can lurk anywhere. Neighbors and friends genuinely saw him as a friendly, jovial man who regularly threw block parties, was involved in community events, and, most famously, dressed as a cheerful clown for kids. No one, absolutely no one, could have ever imagined that beneath his seemingly normal suburban house lay the remains of 29 innocent victims, a horrifying secret buried literally underfoot. The Gacy case profoundly changed how law enforcement approached missing persons cases and how they investigated serial killer profiles. It also revealed a terrifying, uncomfortable truth. Monsters don't always look like monsters. They don't always fit a stereotype. Sometimes they wear a friendly smile. John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown. A man who tragically showed the world that even the brightest, most outwardly cheerful smiles can hide the darkest, most unfathomable souls. Thank you for watching this incredibly difficult but important story. If you found this dive into true crime compelling, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel for more documentaries like this. We deeply appreciate your support. This video is dedicated to the victims who never made it home.